Hello and welcome to the Borchi broadcast. I'm your host, Corey Borchi. Today I've brought on Derrick Grayson, an activist from Georgia, to talk about fake conservatives in the Republican Party and what we can do about it. How you doing, Derrick?
I'm doing fine, my friend. I'm glad to be here. Hello to your audience, and I'm thankful to have this opportunity to try and take it past where I found it.
Well, I thank you for being here. Now, where can we find you online?
Actually, the easiest thing to do is to type in Derrick Grayson, DerrickGrayson. That will pull up my YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram accounts, when you get the search results back. But you can always type in TMOTOFGA, T-Mot of Georgia. Put that at the end of Facebook.com or YouTube.com. And, of course, you got to put that little slash in between them, and that'll take you directly to my pages.
Alrighty. So, I've seen some of your videos, and I've noticed your main message is purging Rinos, which is an acronym for Republican in name only. So, tell me about that. Isn't it just enough to be a Republican?
No. One has to be a conservative. So it's a double-edged sword in this. It's cutting both ways. One, we have the rank and file Republicans who have been fed this line. We must win. We must get the majority. Well, we had the majority under Bush. Bush gave us TARP. We've had the majority before, and the things that we were looking for conservatives to do did not happen. We have the majority now, yet Trump is still having to deal with a House and Senate that passes huge deficit spending bills. So none of that has really changed. Now, Trump is doing what he can do from an administrative perspective, but the line coming from state GOP parties is we need to make sure that we maintain these seats. Well, see, so here's the reality. What's the use in maintaining those seats, like with a David Perdue, who has a 63% constitutional voting record, or Johnny Isaacson, who has a 54%. Every Republican in the 10 congressional districts in Georgia are under 70%, with the exception of one, Jody Heights, who has a 70% constitutional voting record. Everybody else is under 70%. When I ran in 2014 and 2016, whenever I would go into a room, I'd ask people, how many of you believe in 100% of the Constitution 100% of the time? Everybody would always raise their hand. Then I said, well, hold on. Let's be a little fair. Are you willing to give up 5% of your constitutional protections? What about 10 or 20? Nobody would ever raise their hand. Then I would tell them, but yet and still you turn right around and vote for the guy who has an abysmal constitutional voting record. Now, I converted the people in the room when I touched them. That's why in 2014, because I didn't know how corrupt the system was. I didn't know how corrupt. I knew it was corrupt when George Bush gave us TARP. But it wasn't until I ran in 2014 that I got to see the inner workings behind the scenes. I got 1% of the message because I didn't have the education and experience to understand what I was working with. But in 2016, I got 14% of the vote. And that was with no press, because they shut me out, because they knew my message was powerful. It was like Trump's message, addressing the things that people want to have. So that first cutting part of that sword is Republicans tell the rank and file Republicans that we got to maintain those R's. And it doesn't matter about the voting record of the the individual. Then the other side of the sword is we have people who think that they are conservative because they're in the Republican Party, but they don't understand what conservatism is, because the rank and file supports people who are anything but conservative, and I just gave you a few names: Johnny Isaacson and David Perdue. Karen Handel just got elected, and out of the box, her constitutional voting record is 48%. And that is just unbelievable. But everybody say we need that R. We need that R. So the GOP doesn't care. They just want people in the Republican Party to vote for R's. They don't give a damn about being a conservative. And the people, the rank and file, they've forgotten what conservatism is. Now, all of them say the thing that they want to hear. All the politicians would, I believe in limited government. Yeah, I believe in liberty and freedom. Yeah, I believe in the Constitution. But your voting is something completely different. And Congressman Massey put out a video about the 12 appropriations bill legislation that was passed maybe two decades ago, where all of the spending is supposed to be broken up in 12 appropriations bills, but they never do it. They lump them all in one big omnibus bill, and then when the conservative goes back home, not the conservative, the Republican politician goes back home, their excuse is, look, we wanted that money for the veterans, so I had to vote on that bill. Otherwise, the bill would not have passed at all. But what they did was they betrayed their constitutional principles in two ways. One, they knew they were violating the legislation that was put in place to avoid that. That's the 12 appropriation bills. And two, they violated the Constitution using the excuse that they had no other choice. That's BS. You had a choice. You could have said, no, we're going to break this bill up according to the 12 appropriation bills that were put in place, and we are going to stay constitutional. But none of them will do that because they don't want to do that. And now, so that's the double-edged sword. Now, here's the third prong of this, and then I'll shut up and you can ask the next question.
Please carry on.
Okay. Everybody believes and are taught that the racists left the Democrat Party to join the Republican Party. They call it the party switch back in the 60s. That's a lie. What happened was the racists and the progressives and globalists in the Democrat Party realized that they could not beat true conservatism. They failed when they tried to repeal the 13th Amendment. They failed when they tried to repeal the 14th Amendment. They gave up with the 15th Amendment, and after the Compromise of 1877, they said, well, we'll just circumvent that down here in the South with Jim Crow laws and the black codes. But when LBJ was in office, and after Martin Luther King did his nonviolent march, and the whole of the world saw racists turning water hoses and billy clubs and dogs on women and children, and of course the men, that was the turning point. And because Kennedy was going to do something about it, but was assassinated before he got the chance, LBJ had no choice but to sign the legislation that only passed because of the Republican vote in 64, which was the Civil Rights Act, and the Voting Rights Act of 65. He had no choice but to sign them. So what happened, they said, you know what, we can't beat conservatives. So here's what we're going to do. We want some of y'all in the Democratic Party to move over to the Republican Party and pretend that you're conservatives. That's what happened. Because if you ask anybody that says the party switched, ask them to show you a roster of all of the races that were in the Democrat Party that moved over to the Republican Party, and all of the conservatives that were in the Republican Party that moved over to the Democrat Party. There is no such roster that will show that. All that happened was racist liberals left the Democrat Party, joined the Republican Party pretending to be conservatives. And I could give you a whole list of names of them. Johnny Isaacson, Nathan Deal, the governor here in Georgia. There are a ton of folks, Romney. There are a ton of people that have paraded themselves as conservatives or Republicans pretending to be conservatives, and they are nothing of the sort. There was no difference in Romney and Obama. They were one and the same. But Romney was masquerading as a conservative. So I hope I cleared all of that up, and that's where we are. Trump will only be able to get so much done on his own. And if we lose the House and the Senate in 2018 and Trump wins in 2020, he will be limited to administering his presidency by way of either veto or executive order. And of course, the executive orders, they'll just wipe all that out once they get the another liberal back in the office, because typically speaking, the deal that they have behind the scenes, okay, now you run the show for 2 terms, then we'll run the show for 2 terms. There have been exceptions, like George Bush daddy, who went and screwed up by saying, "Read my lips, no new taxes." That's what got him. All right. Yeah. Had he not done that, he'd have done his 2 terms like the rest of them. And from George Bush Sr. all the way up through Obama, we have had nothing but progressive liberals, globalists in the White House. We have not had a decent president since Ronald Reagan. Before that, John F. Kennedy. Before that, it would have been Eisenhower. But everybody else has been screwing us over. Yep. So, that's it. So if we want to help Trump, we better start purging these rhinos. People better start waking up. Republicans had better start waking up the rank and file and understanding what it is to be a conservative, and they had better start paying attention to these people's voting records. Because if they don't, after Trump is out, we'll go right back to business as usual.
Yep. Yeah, I could see that being an issue, and it's a real shame because, well, here in North Carolina, Tom Tillis beat Kay Hagan in 2014, but his constitutional rating is, from Conservative Review's scorecard, is like 28. He is one of the worst rhinos in the Senate.
Wow.
But we're held hostage by him because the Democrat would be just that 10% worse, and we're like, So it becomes
I'll guarantee you that there's somebody that ran against that guy that's a true conservative.
Yes, now, his name was Greg Brandon.
He didn't get any coverage in the press. He was ignored. I'd be surprised if the guy even debated it. But if he did, he was outspent, and the media knows that. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and when you have a guy that talks the Constitution, that makes sense, that talks about 100% of the Constitution, 100% of the time, that he will not betray you, that he will expose the rhinos in his own party, that's when the media, okay, you know what? This is a person we don't need to talk about. Yeah. Anybody that is not an establishment candidate, it doesn't matter which side they're on, we don't cover them. Because if we don't cover them, the establishment picks. It doesn't matter which one of them wins or loses, the American people will lose at the end of the day.
Yep. So, I agree, we need to purge rhinos. But how do we do this? We need to vote them out, but with the media bearing down on us and not even showing us their message half the time. How do we beat them?
They're not the only media. Okay, so give you 2 guys. Now, I can't recall the guy's name, but he beat Eric Cantor. Eric Cantor spent $1 million. This guy spent 1/10 of that, $100,000, and he beat Eric Cantor because Eric Cantor was on record saying he was in favor of amnesty. And people who are conservatives, that were conservatives in his district, They said, "Oh hell no," and they elected the primary challenger, and that's who won in that election. Trump won because the press underestimated him. Trump tapped into the anger of many conservatives and many liberals and independents, and they gave him an unprecedented amount of free press because they thought he would implode and be laughed out of the race. But he beat 17 other challengers, and he won the White House. So there's a new ball game with the media now. But they are defeatable. But we need people like you, Corey, covering the candidates who are true conservatives. We are working on a network here for Georgia. It'll be web-based. But the whole purpose is to educate Georgians on what's going on under our state house, local government, and we will constantly be keeping people apprised of the voting records of their representatives and their constitutional rating. And we will continue to educate them. This is what it is to be constitutional. That is the only way to defeat the press. But we have to be the alternative media. And I didn't say alt-right. I said the alternative media because somebody will hear this interview. Yeah, Grayson T-Mott is talking about the alt-right. And I didn't say the alt-right. I said alternative media.
Yeah, and just now that you said that, I do want to say 100% not alt-right. I am a right-wing conservative. I know you are too. I'm a Republican. I think you are as well. Or you were at least in 2014. I don't know if you switched to libertarian in off-year elections or not, but
no, I'm a member of the Republican Party now, but I am a conservative constitutionalist.
Yeah.
So I distinguish myself with that when people ask, well, are you a Republican? I am a conservative constitutionalist. I belong to the Republican Party because here in the state of Georgia, an independent or libertarian will not win because Georgia is a decidedly red state, bottom line. So, it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I wish third parties did have stronger organization in United States politics because it might mean that the Rinos couldn't easily take control of a party and hold it.
Well, the only way that's going to change is if we get rid of the Rinos that are in our party. The Rhino is the most dangerous politician in America because they covertly pretend to be conservative while they vote in lockstep with liberal progressives. They are, in fact, liberal progressives themselves, globalists. And Trump knows this. And I remember when Trump was elected, he's talking about draining the swamp. Everybody he's bringing in is part of the swamp. I said, just sit back and wait. I promise you, if they are not in line with what Trump is doing, they will be gone. To date, 18 months, Trump made history. He has either fired, demoted, transferred, or forced the resignation of 26 people. Make that 27. Somebody else just left the administration the other day. I didn't read all the details, but I think somebody said it was one of his attorneys. So these are people that belong to the deep state that just aren't willing to, stand up against the deep state. But Trump said it's either going to be the people's way or the highway. And that's what's been happening. But Trump can only do that with his administration.
Yeah, he can only rule.
Yeah. We have to handle the 535 in the House and Senate.
Yep. So then how do you spot a rhino? I heard you say something about a constitutional scorecard or a constitutional rating. What is that?
So I use this site called the New American. Now, the New American is owned and produced by the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society, number one, is nonpartisan. They simply take the Constitution and apply legislative votes against what the 18 or 22 enumerated powers are for the federal government. Depends on how you count it. Some people say 18, some say 22, maybe 23. But you get the point I'm making.
Yeah.
And that's how they tabulate your constitutional rating. They are unbiased, and they don't endorse any candidates. They just simply say, based on what the Constitution says, was this piece of legislation constitutional? If the answer is no, that's a mark against you. If it's yes, then that's a plus for you. Now, there are other places out there or other organizations that call themselves providing that, but they are biased. If you look at some of the legislation that's been passed, any omnibus bill is unconstitutional.
Right.
So anybody that votes yes for any omnibus bill, that is unconstitutional. Anybody that voted for Obamacare, it was unconstitutional. So it's not about bias. It's not about them saying, oh, but it was good for the people. Oh, but we needed that money for the military. No, we are supposed to do this by 12 appropriations bills. We're not supposed to spend more than we bring in. We weren't mandated to be involved in this or that. And so that is where the John Birch Society is coming from with their New American. And their website is the newamerican.com/freedom-index. And
Yep.
that's I post it all the time, telling people this is, you want to find out about your state and the representatives and senators there, go here. Look them up. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I'm going to have there's a link in the description below for everyone listening. I'm going to put the link in below so that we will be able to find that later.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, sounds like rhinos are almost a bigger problem than Democrats.
Yes, they are, because they are covert. They are undercover. They're hiding in plain sight. And because we have been lulled into thinking that all that matters is the R, whoever wins the primary. See, that's the biggest problem. People won't go out and vote in the primary for the alternative. A good rule of thumb is if the person is an incumbent, don't vote for them. But if you want to do it the right way, if they're an incumbent, look at their constitutional voting record. And if it's less than 80%, check out the platform of the opponents. And if what they're talking about is in line with the Constitution, that's who you vote for. That is where we've got to get people to.
Yep. Yeah, and I know that even congressmen whom you would consider usually good, like Mark Walker in North Carolina, he doesn't even fall in the Freedom Index above 80.
Yeah, well, he need to go. Now, there are some guys that might be a 70 or 78. They tend to vote with their party because that's what the leadership wants them to do.
Right.
Representative Massey pointed that out. If you don't vote in lockstep and you want to be on committees and you don't want to be blackballed, you got to go along to get along. But I'm not one of those kind of guys. Massey is not one of those kind of guys. Justin Amash is not one of those kind of guys. Rand Paul is not one of those kind of guys. Ron Paul was not one of those kind of guys. The problem is nobody has been willing to step up to the plate and expose the whole entire cabal for what they are. Because, look, I can't speak for, what floats their cornflakes, but me, I'd be a completely different animal. I would tell you, hey, this representative, this is what he's putting forth, this is what he's sponsoring, this is why it's bad for you as an American. And I give you their name, and I give you their phone number, and their email address. And I say you need to call them and tell them they need to get in line or get the hell out.
Yep. No, that's the thing. And there is a lot of power on the Hill, I know, where since organizations like the Republican Party and Democrats control
Hmm.
who is on the committees, then they hold a huge power over the congressmen, and they're not able to properly elect members of their district or represent the members of their districts.
Well, you know what? Obama said, well, I got a pen and I got a phone. I might only serve one term, but I can buy me a bullhorn and I can go stand out on the street corner. And, trust me, when people say, T-Mont, Senator Derrick Grayson is about to expose somebody for doing some underhanded stuff, trust me, people would start doing things differently.
I would imagine somebody in the Senate pointing fingers and naming names. They won't want that in there.
No, they will not. They will say, who do I fear most? Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, or my constituents?
Yep. So you said Senator Derrick Grayson. Now, are you considering a run in the future?
Yes, I am. I am looking at 2020 against David Perdue. He's got to go.
Alrighty. Well, I want to go ahead and say that the Board Tree Broadcast 100% endorses Derrick Grayson for U.S. Senate in Georgia for 2020.
There you go. There you go. I appreciate it.
Well, I reckon that was the subject I wanted to cover.
Well, I hope I covered it well.
You certainly did, sir. Thank you for coming on.
It was a pleasure. Please have me back.
I will indeed.
All right, man. Well, you guys take care. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And please let me know where I can find this online, offline.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of the file, and
Okay.
I'll send you a link as well.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Hold on.